Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Security Education, Research and Innovation Conference, a first of its kind virtual cybersecurity and cryptography conference organized by the National Center of Excellence, the Data Security Council of India. The theme of this plenary session is Cyber East, University Education and Research across Australia, Singapore, and India. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists, Professor Maninder Agarwal, who is a professor and head of the Department of Computer Sciences at the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Professor Greg Austin, who is a professor of cybersecurity, strategy, and diplomacy at the School of Engineering and Information Technology, University of New South Wales, Canberra. Mr. Chandrapatri Appla Satyanarayan Murty, who is the Associate Director of Center for Development of Advanced Computing, Government of India. Mr. Ajay Kumar, who is the Asia Pacific Cybersecurity Business Leader at CrowdStrike, Singapore, and also anchors the DSCI Singapore chapter. And finally, our esteemed moderator, Mr. Narendra Nath, who is the Joint Secretary in the National Cybersecurity Coordinator's Office, Government of India. Mr. Narendra Nath, over to you, sir.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Hello.
Yes, hello. Please go ahead. Please go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So, thank you very much. You know, actually, I've actually got held up in a sudden urgent meeting. That's why I got delayed. Is it okay that if I can, be in this for around 15 minutes and then be excused? I'm sorry, it's because there's some urgent work that's come up, and I have my PA who's sitting in front of me and doing that as I do it. How would it be if I start the proceedings and then, is it okay if I leave for after, say, around 15-20 minutes?
I'm sure, sir.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm actually, there's something that's come up. Yeah. So, one of the things that capacity building, and that's a pet subject that I always have. Whenever we talk of processes and products and people, the people component is the most important part, because the processes and the products and all other things are taken care of if you have the right set of people to do it. And especially in cybersecurity, where we have the field which is very dynamic and changing every day, we find that there's a high level of skill shortage. And from where we sit at the National Cybersecurity Coordinator's Office, we find that across sectors, not only in the government, but across in the private sector, and especially in the small and medium-sized enterprises, which are badly strapped for talent. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology has come up with this Information Security Education and Awareness Program, which the phase 1 has already been done, and we had the phase 2, where there are multiple dimensions that it's ought to address. One is in terms of having capacity building through just in 5 minutes, sir. Yes, I'll just come in. Yeah.
So I'm there, huh?
Yes.
I'm going.
Yes. Sorry. That had multiple dimensions. One of the things that they sought to address was to build academic capacity in terms of the educational institutions running programs at the undergraduate level and the graduate level, and for research at these institutions. The other aspect was for awareness for the school children, for which they had programs for having educational awareness programs for school teachers, so that subsequently they could actually spread the cyber hygiene awareness to the school children. And the third aspect of that was, capacity building and training for officers posted in the government. So that program has been quite successful in building awareness across all the sectors. And based on that, you find lots of activity has happened in institutions. We also had the industry board, the NASCOM, which has come up with the sectoral skills that are required. and a lot of coursework has also been built in that. So this way you find that there is activity, but then when we look at the sector, we find that there is no competency clear cut, though the Sector Skills Council has come up with a competency framework, but still, like for example, when we have CISOs coming in place or any person to post it into the cybersecurity roles, clear cut definition of what are the roles, different roles that are there in the organization, and what are the competency requirements of that, and the entry requirements for occupying those positions is something that is a work in progress. There's a lot of body of work that's happened across the world, and in the US, for example, in the UK, in Australia, in Israel, where we find that work has happened in terms of defining the competency framework and the skill sets that are required, and not only the implementation plans for that. And now this is a very important component of the final goal of building cybersecurity skill sets across the sectors and also ensuring cybersecurity. We are coming up with the National Cybersecurity Strategy 2020, and this aspect is one of the important components of the strategy. And once that comes in place, we want to roll out implementation plans for that. These are my initial comments. I'm sorry, but you must have observed that I've got a call, and I'll have to be excused from this because there's some urgent work that has actually come up. Sorry, and thank you very much for giving the opportunity. I would have loved to actually be part of the complete deliberations that are there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nath, and we understand your predicament, and we hope you would be able to join us another time in another session.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Sorry.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that start, may I request Professor Maninder Agarwal to take the floor and give his remarks?
Thank you. Mr. Nath raised a very important issue of training the cybersecurity professionals and also the imparting the right skill set to them which matches with the requirement of their organizations. Looking at it from Indian perspective, as he also observed that we at present do not have the cybersecurity trained professionals anywhere near the number that is required. There is a very significant gap between what we require and what we have. Now, this is where the academic institutions need to play a very important role. We all sitting in academia in India need to step up and ensure that over the next few years there is significant increase in the cybersecurity training. As towards this, at IIT Kanpur, we have already initiated the multiple steps. I would like to share some of them with you. We have got the permission from the Institute Senate to start a master's in cybersecurity, which is physical version of it. That is, it's a 2-year program meant for students, of course, but also industry professionals and government officials. We also have taken permission for starting an e-masters program where there is no physical presence required on campus, and all the course delivery will happen remotely. Both of these programs we are aiming to launch from 2021 July, hoping that particularly with e-masters, a fairly large number of professionals, it is primarily meant for them, will be able to register for it and get the appropriate training. In parallel with that, we are partnering with a company called Talent Sprint to deliver specific cybersecurity modules to industry professionals as well as students. So their industry professional program is already underway for past 8 months, and the program meant for undergraduate students is going to start, I believe, in January next year. And again, the aim being that to expose these students and professionals to basic paradigms and tools of cybersecurity. And with that, we hope to contribute from our perspective, from at least from IIT Kanpur side, in training a large body of people in cybersecurity. Thank you. That's all I have to say initially.
Thank you, Professor Agarwal, for your remarks. And I would now like to call upon Professor Greg Austin to take the floor and give us a more Australian perspective of developing the capacity for cybersecurity education. Professor, over to you.
Yep, thank you, Vikas. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here this afternoon. So thank you for the invitation. So a group of us in Australia were looking at cybersecurity education policies for several years now, working in cooperation initially with the Australian Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet back in 2017. We published a book just this year capturing the findings of an international conference on the subject. And generally, we found that Australia faces the same situation as most other countries. We also found that Australia, like most other countries, is not investing near enough money in the problem of cybersecurity education as it claims it should. So Australia, in its cybersecurity policy documents, like every other country in the world, has identified cybersecurity education and research as important, but as not moving fast enough and not reaching the scale and that it needs to. In 2016, the Australian government announced a cybersecurity strategy, which had attached to it $3.6 million over 4 years. That was like a drop in the ocean in terms of the amount of money available. In the 2020 strategy, just announced in July this year, the Australian government committed $26 million over the following 4 years. So that was a big increase. But by and large, the Australian government is pretty much following in the footsteps of other governments around the world. We're trying to pursue bottom-up approaches. So we're sprinkling a bit of money here and a bit of money there, sometimes towards universities, sometimes towards technical colleges, sometimes towards cybersecurity awareness in high schools and primary schools, and sometimes in specialty programs directed at ex-service people who've left the armed forces. By and large, the Australian government is not achieving any of its goals in cybersecurity education as we understand them. The Australian government has not set concrete targets for the expansion of cybersecurity education. So from the 2016 strategy on, there were no baselines of where we were in cybersecurity education, and very few have been drawn since. There is an organisation in Australia called AustCyber, which is an innovation and growth centre established by the Department of Industry to stimulate the industry and the sector of cybersecurity in Australia. Part of its work involves cybersecurity education. It's done some good things, but by and large, the actors involved in Australia, from the government to the peak bodies to the education institutions, are not really engaging with cybersecurity education in the way that they need to. Now, what's the solution to this? I think the solution is that governments need to adopt serious cybersecurity education strategies. So in the same way that some governments have published a cybersecurity strategy at the national level, they've published international engagement strategies for cybersecurity, they really need to get much more closely engaged in setting cybersecurity education strategies for the country as a whole. In the Australian case, the lack of detailed attention to cybersecurity education is part of the broader problem of lack of attention to education for the information age in general. Australia, like some other countries, has announced an artificial intelligence strategy, and that, of course, has cyber components. And in the artificial intelligence roadmap that's been produced by the Australian government's premier research organisation, the CSIRO, there are some comments about the development of artificial intelligence education. But it's interesting to compare, for example, we did some research on China recently where we found that one of the leading PLA information engineering universities had set up a special undergraduate stream in artificial intelligence. It's very hard to find an undergraduate stream in artificial intelligence in any university in Australia. It's more considered a subject of advanced learning, research and education. So let me just end my initial round of comments by saying that no country will get very far in cybersecurity education unless its government and the peak bodies involved and the education institutions can jointly develop a detailed and well-funded national education plan, both for cybersecurity and for the information age in general. Thank you, Vikas.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Austin, and has rightly illustrated the need for collaborative work to be done. And on that note, I would like to invite Mr. Murty from C-DAC to talk a little bit more about the work India is doing towards that regards. Mr. Murty, over to you. Sir, you're on mute.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Vikas, and also thank you for inviting me as part of this conference. So, as rather than talking as part of C-DAC, I'm talking about this thing is as part of ministry, because as you know that India marked in early 90s space in global IT industry by outsourcing software and software services. So India's software services and exports were rising rapidly, leading to a boom in IT sector in that time. So that is where the government of India is also thought about that along with this IT and ICT technologies, the cybersecurity is one of the important activity. So that is where in the early, even the 90s also itself, they thought of defining kind of a cyber laws and cyber policy. They were started, but that initiated the activities the way back in 2000 itself, ensuring cybersecurity was enabling a legal framework by bringing into that Information Technology IT Act 2000. So that you all know that that is one of the initial step by government of India. And of course, along with that, they established an organization certain to take care of the various security incidents. By looking at this thing, that is where, because India is one of the country where that supporting the human resources across the globe within IT ICT. So it is required for cybersecurity also. So within that view itself, first initiated this information security education and awareness program, what Mr. Narendra said. So this program was initiated in 2005 in association with the 32 institutes like IITs, NITs, ITs, and YTs.
Mr. Murty, I'm really sorry to interrupt, but yeah, there's some sort of echo. Could the technical team please intervene?
Is it now okay?
Yeah, it's fine now, sir. Please go ahead.
So this information security education and awareness program was initiated by ministry by keeping in view of to support human resources. Once that is started from the basically in the undergraduate courses, so that the courses would be implemented as an optional courses as part of these 32 institutes as initially. But the main objective of this program is to generate of generation of core research manpower to undertake basic and fundamental research and applied research in the areas of information security, and also introducing some kind of a security curriculum in formal courses like MTech, ME, MSc, BTech, and even the postgraduate diplomas where the candidates which we are just coming out of the intermediate and post diploma candidates, where they can take up this as initial support to IT, ICT technologies, where information security is one of the important. And also we introduced some modular short-term knowledge come skill-oriented courses with respect to the job-oriented, role-oriented kind of things. So this program is again continued from 2010 to 11 onwards as in a second phase, where we created 4 ISRDCs, Information Security Research Development Centers at IIT Madras, IISc Bangalore, and IIT Mumbai and IIT Guwahati, where they were working on a specific research technologies like hardware security, cryptography, and even the respective sub areas. So, but most of the things which we covered as basically is the introducing the various course curriculum as part of education and established as a proof of concepts, these research centers where they can develop some kind of a proof of concepts. That is what they were initially successful. But what is that I understood that basically as a personal, my point of view is that attachment of industry is not there for this. This is a purely designed in such a way that respective institutes work towards that some kind of delivering the proof of concepts. But however, let's take example of IIT Madras. They were taken up and they were associated with the DRDO and they supported some of the activities in this because this program was supported to them to take up their POCs into the industry. So that is where we started initiated. Now we are looking into going into the third phase where we are concentrating more on research, innovation, and best in students, which we wanted to identify and maybe getting them into created. So that is also we are associating with the DSCI to implement such kind of things. However, I would like to raise, there are 5 things here. Basically, what exactly I think your inputs also required. So one is we are able to do some kind of a capacity building activities. But look into that industry. So we need to look about that particularly, not only the capacity building is kind of a capability building things we need to establish at the education level, institutes level itself, so that they can do it immediately after joining immediately to the industry. They can support industry so that we can create as many as indigenous products. That is the first point. And of course, the government can be invested some part of the budget towards that implementing such kind of programs. But industry is required with a kind of a set of problems. That problems itself can be solved at educational level, at undergraduate and graduate level itself. This definitely would be a good success program. Second point is that we have different sectors out there. The sector specific things which we are considering at the undergraduate level itself. Like if you're looking at the present education system, everybody is thinking about IT, ICT or security over IT, ICT. But however, you required even the core subjects like electronics, mechanics department, such kind of core courses also we need to enable as part of critical information infrastructure. So that is where we need to build things. However, if you see the recent trends of last 2 years, now AICT, one of the organization which takes care of all the engineering education, where they were establishing 10 different center of cyber excellence centers as part of this education. This is not only for the education purpose. They were setting the labs for doing some kind of research and delivering proof of concept and encouraging as much as papers in this. And we need to develop or build a kind of strengthening a cyber defense and deterrence kind of technologies, because some people are very much interested to find out or maybe doing a kind of exploiting things. We need to identify such kind of students or such kind of members where we need to give a continuous support right from education to even though they supports various activities which is required for country. So that is where we need to develop a variety of labs, not only research, even though some kind of defense and deterrence labs also should be created and train them effectively as part of education system itself, so that industry can benefit a lot. So with this, I would like to give it back to this one and maybe further we can discuss anything other than. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for highlighting those extremely imperial points, Dr. Murty. And to carry forward the momentum, I would like to invite Mr. Ajay Kumar.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thanks for this opportunity to talk about cybersecurity skill gap. So I'm based in Singapore and engaging with a lot of CISOs and CIOs as an anchor of DSCI chapter and being part of the cybersecurity industry, heading the services business for CrowdStrike in Singapore, actually. I'm interacting with a lot of security professionals here, academia, government, and enterprise. But definitely, cybersecurity professionals report that there is a staff shortages at their own organizations. And then cybersecurity risk that spring directly from those shortages. And if you look at the COVID-19 situation, despite COVID-19 and economic pressures, organizations plan to increase cybersecurity staffing over the next, say, 12 months, remain constant with the previous years. But there is another point which I would like to highlight here is that there is a global gap in the cybersecurity workforce. Varies by region. It's dominated by a gap of more than 2 million in Asia Pacific region itself. Globally, we have approximately 3 million shortage, but globally, in the APJ region, we have about 2 million, which is 66% of the total, the shortage of cybersecurity professionals, which is a big number. From a Singapore perspective, as you know, that there is a pretty strong and advanced looking agency, cybersecurity agency of Singapore, CSA. The CSA has developed this master plan in consultation with cybersecurity industry, academia, to raise the general level of cybersecurity in Singapore for individual users, communities, enterprises, and organizations. So it is kind of a collaborative model which CSA has developed. And there are three components of this master plan in Singapore. Is number one is a secure core digital infrastructure. As you know, that Singapore is considered as a master city or a master country, or a smart city or a smart country. So there is a lot of digital transformation going on. So the first plan was to secure that core digital infrastructure. The second component of that master plan was the safeguard our cyberspace activities. So whatever activities are going on right now, irrespective of industry vertical and irrespective of the different the component of industries, a safeguard for that. Hours. Sorry. So the third one is empower our cyber savvy population, and that is very, very critical actually to secure the individuals, to secure the organizations, and that's actually the third component of a master plan of the CSA. The master plan also outlines almost 11 initiatives under these three components that serve as examples of how we intend to better safeguard and protect our cyberspace. As you know, everyone has a role to play in the cybersecurity of our shared digital space. We are connected, and enterprises, organizations, individuals can leverage the initiatives in the master plan to better protect themselves. And that's actually the initiatives along with universities, NUS or NTU, and a couple of other institutions are working together actually to enhance the cybersecurity capability and actually bridging the gap of shortage of cybersecurity professionals. Another point which I would like to mention that I am also connected with a couple of universities and institutes where I'm taking some sessions on fundamentals of cybersecurity, because it is very, very important rather to have a very, I would say, a fixed curriculum, or whether it is a bachelor degree in cybersecurity or master program in cybersecurity. If there is some kind of interaction from industry perspective, what are the new trends in cybersecurity? What are the TTPs of these adversaries? Whether it's a ransomware attack, what are the techniques of these adversary groups? Whether it's e-crime group or nation states, it is very, very important actually to have that kind of a collaboration in between industry and then academia. So yeah, we are looking forward to have more discussion. I would like to cover more points toward this, but these are my opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar, for your remarks. And now I would like to invite Mr. Vinayak Godse, the Vice President of Data Security Council of India, to join us in the conversation.
Thank you, Vikas, and thank you all for joining in today's conversation. And we will probably take this discussion ahead based on the points that we heard from all three of you. So I'll start with Professor Greg Kirsten. So the approaches now seems getting consolidated national level. So most of the national cybersecurity strategy, and including we heard Mr. Narendranath, and we heard Mr. Murty, and we also heard you and Ajay as well. And so the approaches are now increasingly getting consolidated. One, definitely there is a bottom-up, ground-up approach where some of the universities have been investing from their side, but there is also strong national intervention basically which is coming to take care of the skilling initiative, to take care of the domestic requirement in India. We also need to take care of the global requirement because many of the companies have been setting their operation here in India. So how do you see this is playing out, like at a university level effort, and then other part is the intervention that is coming from national perspective to take care of the skilling requirement?
Well, thanks for your question. That's very challenging situation. For example, Australia has got now developed a rather aggressive immigration policy to encourage people to come to Australia to work in the cybersecurity sector away from countries in the region, one of which is India, of course. Singapore is another one that we target. And so this question of in a sense, stealing each other's valuable resources, this competition for valuable human resources is quite interesting. And I think that national education strategies for cyberspace, for cybersecurity in general, so far have not been international enough. They've been a little bit too constrained by a nationalistic perspective. And I've always said that Australia should cooperate closely with countries of Southeast Asia and India. My university has tried to work with India, for example, Indian universities, to try and develop collaborative education programs, especially including education programs by distance. For example, now we have Zoom, we can do it by Zoom, but most universities have distance learning platforms now which can provide that. And I do think that an urgent cosmopolitan approach to cybersecurity education could produce very quick results for all countries. And that just would take a lot of coordination, but it's not beyond us within a year from the day we start to come up with a very low-cost set of cybersecurity education options for a variety of skill levels and a variety of tasks. So that will be my brief answer to your question. Thanks.
Thank you. So Professor Maninder, because I think this experiment of and very important to understand the C3I lab that you set up, and that is focusing largely on industrial security, but on mostly research focus approach to the building the skill basically. And now you are trying to really transform that to the larger hub basically, and including the education as a component basically. So I think your experience of managing that and probably your insight about how can we replicate those kind of experimentation or exploration that you and your experience basically to all key institutions across the country and in some other parts of the globe as well. So what kind of insight that you can possibly provide to replicate the kind of efforts that you have put together until now, and your experience of last so many years of C3I, and now you are transforming that to a larger level. So how this center of excellence level or some hub level effort that is being put on an institution like IIT Kanpur can be replicated to in other areas as well?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very important question, and also it's something that needs to be done because for a country like India, just one institution doing this is going to be grossly insufficient. We need, as you said, to replicate it at multiple institutions. The key thing in order to do that will be people. Really, I think even at IIT Kanpur, until just two of us got together, myself and Professor Sandeep Shukla, things were not really taking off. I mean, I was there, but just one person can only do so much. So the central theme or requirement is to form a group of 2 or 3 committed, well knowledgeable faculty who can then set the ball rolling. And from a government perspective, I think wherever they see such group existing, or then they should provide all necessary resources, because that's the only way to leverage and step up the training part of this challenge. What will be required, because it's not so easy to find good people who are interested in academic positions. I mean, this is such a competitive and hot field that well-trained people get snapped up by the industry as well as other entities. So what is required also is to be aggressive about recruitment of high quality faculty in Indian institutions. As Mr. Austin mentioned, that there is always a element of competitiveness, and also within friendly countries, people move from one place to another and help those places to grow. So we have to adopt, all of us have to adopt that approach as well. Somebody well trained in Australia, somebody well trained in US, we would need to attract, just like they do. They attract our people to their countries. We need to attract their people to our country and make sure that these processes are able to nucleate these groups at different locations and then take it forward. That's the only way.
Yeah. So, Mr. Murty, I think you talked very interesting point here is the education was largely training and skill building until now, but now increasingly innovation is becoming integral part of the cybersecurity education. And that's why there's a need for setting up a lab and lab infrastructure, and make sure that we while we are working on education, the research component is also coming in that education. And why it is happening? Because security is increasingly becoming more technical subject, more nuanced, granular subject, and with all those kind of volume and velocity of a product that is getting deployed. So manual intervention of a typical risk-based approach and risk assessment approach may not really work. So in this direction, how this new plan is shaping up, and how can it scale up this kind of ecosystem, which is largely based on innovation and research, and which can also feed. Means we see from the DSS side, we see there are 3 key objectives of skill building. One is definitely growth of cybersecurity industry, and significant part of that definitely services industry. But now increasingly the product industry is also coming. There are a lot of startup now. We are just publishing the report of Indian cybersecurity startup product report in couple of days in our annual information security summit, which talks about almost 240 plus companies now have cybersecurity product in the country basically. And then they saw global plus domestic market. Second part is that there are a lot of global companies also come and set up their cybersecurity operation. Those are very intense technical operations as well. And third is our own domestic industry plus critical sector, defense sector also needs cybersecurity skills basically. So there are 3 objectives basically for skill building, and in that 3 objective, now technology is definitely key focus, and how this plan is shaping to focus more innovation research in the upcoming plan of ISCA. You are on mute, sir.
That's what the third phase, which we are looking more about the 3 things. So one is capacity building, another one is capability building. The capability building, which we are planning to start from school itself. the people who that whatever the curriculum is having by NCRT, now they were updating based on some recommendations which last 2 years. And when we conducted awareness workshops across these schools, we understood that some of the students are very brilliant and working towards, they were more interested in part of the cybersecurity. The reasons could be different. So because of the interest of cracking and hacking kind of things attracts more first. But we need to enable them in the right pathway to come into the take of such kind of career in cybersecurity. That is what one program which we are planning to start from the Cyber Kid program in the third phase. And second, which we are planning to have some kind of along with whatever that the traditional education system, we wanted to add like a boot camps and hackathons along in the educational part. And we also discussing with the Minister of Higher Education how to implement them as part of their education system when it is coming to the cybersecurity. It's not only cybersecurity, it's AICT is already discussing about that different domains, and along with one of the cybersecurity domain for each and every domain to be integrated. That is one part. And parallelly, we wanted to identify the innovation that in associating with the DSA and other industry, so that we conduct across India. So we are making in the groupism, like in a, let's say take example, as rightly in the previous discussion. So everything at one institute is good initially, but we need to replicate it. So what we are planning to do that, we are logical clusters which we are making in such a way that like IITs, NITs and IIITs and the universities, technical universities specifically, where they were more concentrating on engineering institutes, like a lot of more private engineering institutes would be part of technical universities. So we wanted to make these 5 institutes as in one group per a particular cluster which they are working on, and a particular let's take an example of network security itself or infrastructure security itself. So we wanted to make it them so that whatever the expertise is having the higher institutes, that can be transferred to the other institutes also, so that this kind of logical clustering definitely would help to create a kind of an ecosystem. So that's what we are discussing with the NCRT, MHA, and like through DSA with the various industry. So should have a plan of something like each cluster. We are planning to have 10 different thematic areas. Let's like take example of infrastructure security, cryptography. So that is what we are taking 3 or 4 clusters at present, what the industry is booming. And also research, when talking about the research is also one of the major component as part of our education system. So we wanted to establish at least out of these 10 clusters, 3 clusters should be part of looking about that emerging technologies, how this cybersecurity would work with emerging technologies and a combination of this. So this is this kind of environment which we already tested in at present phase 2, where we are able to at least release of 1,000 papers. That is what the first target. But only few proof of concept which we bought it, like in around 20 proof of concepts which we bought it. But now we wanted to make it some further more on quality papers and target on international presence. We also having another program as part of this ISCE, bilateral cooperations. Bilateral cooperation gives us a very important activity, so that we can exchange the faculty from one institute to other institute, or otherwise exchange students, because where we are talking about research, we are trying to make as many as PhDs, MS research kind of activities, so that the exchange of the students with other universities, that is what we are planned. In the last phase, what we did is that we associated with 3 universities where they exchanged the faculty, and they also conducted 2-week programs. Here they came to India and they conducted 2-week program, and our people were gone to their country and they were conducted like that. That is what we started as a proof of concept. Now we wanted to increase more such collaborations now in our place.
Yeah.
So that is where we want to go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that's really good and inspiring to see, because that's how the now education systems are evolving to take care of the developmental requirement of security rather than only testing and assessment requirement of security. So Ajay, there's a question somebody asked in a chat here from the audience, basically, which talks about in ITU ranking on cybersecurity preparedness. Singapore ranks at a regional level. It ranks first, right? So how much part of that attributed to the effort that is being really put at the education level? So how serious is that effort, and more importantly, how these university systems there have been responding? Is it only for domestic requirement, or so how exactly these particular one number ranking zeroes down to the effort that is putting on education skill building side?
Sure. So in Singapore, as I mentioned, the strategy for cybersecurity through CSA, and CSA is operating since 2015, is a proof that Singaporean government supports cybersecurity functions in the country. There's a lot of collaboration happening with the universities. NUS has the cybersecurity courses, short-term and long-term courses. NTU has short-term and long-term courses, and there's a lot of collaboration actually in between industry and then universities to have some kind of an insight what is going on in the environment, whether threat intelligence information, whether global trends on cybersecurity, or cyber attack initiatives. So there's a lot of collaboration, happening. Other than that, to further strengthen the fight against cyber threats, the government created, a cybersecurity strategy. Which you can say that encompasses critical information infrastructure, the businesses, workforce, communities, international partnerships, and definitely academia collaboration is critical part of that collaboration. In 2018, as you know, the Cybersecurity Act was also established in Singapore. Moreover, there are several nations are working together in ASEAN region to ensure cybersecurity is protected on a global scale. 2018, in fact, Singapore was leading the efforts to boost cyber defenses in entire ASEAN region. So I would say that there is a lot of the collaboration which are being supported by the agency, government, and definitely university side. One of the point which I would like to mention here, that the government, the Singapore government is also working on a national AI strategy to transform the cybersecurity. And that is, quite interesting, to have that kind of a use case. Blockchain strategy, is also in the discussion at this moment. MAS is discussing actually with the financial institutions and how blockchain can be used as a secured way of, transaction. One thing which is quite interesting here, that the Singapore government has a SSG program, which is a skill future grant. If anybody who is a PR or citizen would like to go for any course in Singapore, can get a grant actually from the government, and it supports a lot. Because if you select any program, and if you want to do some kind of a short-term program actually cybersecurity from NUS, NTU, or even University of West London, or a couple of US universities who are providing online courses in Singapore, they can actually get a rebate or the grant from government of Singapore. So yes, that collaboration is pretty strong here in Singapore at this moment to look at the entire cybersecurity ecosystem.
There one question which I like quickly to take from Professor Greg and Professor Maninder is on the security is a very dynamic field and changing quite fast because of technology also evolving fast, right? And the curriculum tends to be moving slow. So how do you make sure that that you keep a pace of development of a technology, keep a pace of the adoption of technology? First, we go Professor Greg, and then I'll request Dr. Maninder also comment on that.
Well, thanks. Very tough question. Many industry representatives would say that tertiary institutions can't really provide the best cybersecurity education or the complete cybersecurity education. And since universities have moved slowly, I think some additional hybrid options need to be developed, some commercial providers. That's happening in Australia to some degree. But I think we do need specifically more investment. So, for example, in Australia, we have to set up a national cybersecurity academy. We have to do something like that, which has the Chinese government has established in Wuhan, for example, a national cybersecurity college with extremely ambitious student number turnover. It announced that in about 2016, 2017, I think their annual turnover they're looking for is 10,000 per year. So we do need new academies. We do need new hybrid innovations. Industry should lead alongside government. Thank you.
Professor Maninder?
Well, actually, this is a point that comes up often between this expectation from the industry and what academia expectation at academia. So there are two aspects to this. One is any domain, in particular cybersecurity domain, has certain core concepts that do not change over time, or even if they do, they change quite slowly. So that part can be very easily and properly imparted at academia. It doesn't require any industry intervention in terms of keeping the fast-moving field and things keep changing, etc. Then come the application of these concepts onto the real life problems or challenges. That is what keeps changing. Some new techniques may be invented and new domains may be available, etc. And that's where the industry participation is important. And what we have found to be a good model for that is, for example, in the Cybersecurity Center at IIT Kanpur, we have collaboration with multiple industries from where we source many of these problems. And these problems, when sourced, our students can be given that as part of their training to work on. And this provides them with the opportunity to train on the latest set of problems. Now, this can be expanded in terms of, right now, the set of students we are working with is not very large. But as we are looking to ramp it up very significantly. And then what will require to happen is that these students can actually work on site at various industries for certain projects, besides doing the coursework through the institute. And there they can have a very immediate and direct exposure to the latest challenges.
Yeah. So there is one important part, and I think Mr. Murty, that question I would like to ask to you, and probably get some other speakers, viewers also on that. So there's a demand supply, and then there is definitely somebody who is supplying the skill, or somebody who has these BTech, MTech programs, and I had been interacting with a lot of university who has now specialized BTech, MTech program. On one hand, I see them, on the other hand, I see industry. Industry says, in fact, we are publishing small report today afternoon. I will be talking about that, where we try to find how many jobs open in last 3 months in cybersecurity space, and that number stands around 53,000 actually. We had look at, and then if you really look at extrapolate that number for a year and for next 5 years, it's a significant number that we see, and that demand is not really very well known and very well understood. And on the other hand, there are BTech, MTech courses, but they struggle to find a relevant kind of connect with the industry who really need such kind of resources, basically. So how do you bring this intelligence about the demand and supply in security? And if you know demand well, then probably aligning would also become very important part. So in the plan that we have, are we focusing on demand? Yes, we believe we are from the SERI have been putting some effort, but are you also focusing on the demand side?
Yes, definitely. See, whatever we are planning to do, that we have to look about the demand only. So otherwise we won't success. That is where we working out. But however, when we designed these courses, whether courses with respect to MS research or MTech courses, with respect to keeping in view of the industry requires. So in this, especially the first semester, which we more concentrate on the fundamental subject, where because they need like in a fundamentals of with respect to networks, computers, communications. That is where we more concentrated. But first semester, second semester is majorly with respect to a specialized subjects. If you are planning to go for a research kind of thing, so that's what we initiated a stream of cryptographic research and methodologies and respect to technologies which we are keeping. Otherwise, if you are going towards, if you wanted to be part of management side, there is separate streams which we created under each stream. In such a streams, we created specialized subjects from 9 to 12 subjects for each. The total 53 streams which we are created. Why? Because this is one is the major problem in that we should have faculty also. When we conducted these 34 institutes, if you look into that at one time, the all faculty are working in one stream only. Maybe a specialized faculty is required. That's what we introduced it in parallelly, that faculty and advanced faculty training, so that to deliver this kind of courses. But our ultimate job is that deliver with respect to the industry requirements. So where we divide into the 6 major streams: infrastructure and communication model, information security management, and secure programming streaming, network and data security analysis, such kind of things. Even though we created one stream like a cybercrime investigation and forensics, where if their career would like to wanted to go in investigation and incident analysis kind of things. This way we created in around 53 different modules or streams. However, we mapped with our NPTEL courses wherever that is available, the NPTEL courses. In this program, we are taking that where they are not available. We more concentrating on designing with IIT Guwahati, NIT Jaipur, MNIT Jaipur, MNIT Surathkal. Such institutes we are considering to design and develop these courses and deliver in both modes. IIT Madras was created 5 courses for basically on fundamentals of cybersecurity. If anybody can come and join the career of cybersecurity. So these are the fundamental courses plus that respect to technical courses which we require for industry is must for getting the jobs. So we have to look into this way, and we need to support industry. Otherwise, bringing them into the industry is very difficult. The industry expects immediately to support their activities. Other than these courses, we also supporting like in a respect to role-based security courses, where our Ministry of Skill, and all skills, there are 10 courses which we designed, which is useful for immediately industry, so that ISEA and NASCOM security skills, these 3 organizations together to support various activities with respect to the government users and the students.
Okay, so I think we are left with another 3-4 minutes of this session, and one important thing, there are definitely 1 or 2 questions here. One question talks about how can we join security courses. I can briefly answer that there are so many MTech courses now available in different universities of India. There are some BT diploma courses available, or some diploma courses available. There are some professional bodies also provide certification course. So I think you can join that, and you can probably get a benefit of that. But one important thing which I want to really discuss here, because this is something that we talk about, is the Cyber East as a program. And as Ajay rightfully mentioned that out of all of those 4.1 million shortage of the skills, the Asia Pacific has almost 2.6 million shortage basically, right? So collectively, because I had been, as Professor Austin had mentioned, I had been also receiving a lot of those delegation coming from the Australian universities. Basically, we had also met a couple of times the cyber diplomat who had visited us basically in India. So how can collectively these countries like India, Singapore, Australia come together? Probably there are definitely some level of association which is happening, corruption happening. How can we collectively come together to solve or to bridge this gap of the skill in cybersecurity space? With Professor Austin first, then Maninder, and then Ajay and Murty sir.
Well, thank you very much. My answer, I guess, in a very simple, roundabout way, would be to create a regional centre of knowledge, regional centre of expertise. So Singapore has sort of, in a sense, moved in that direction already in some respects, but you need a knowledge community that reflects whether it's ASEAN plus or CIDA East, whatever the formula is, a genuine knowledge community hub, not a distributed one. We can make up all the distributed networks we like, cybersecurity education network in the region, but we do need a physical centre where there's a real concentration, and it's best if it's clustered with real powerful industrial capability, and perhaps some centre in India recommends itself for that, maybe Sayajaya in Malaysia, but you've got to put the academy beside the industry, and you've got to have this physical knowledge centre, I think. Thank you.
Professor Maninder?
I agree with that suggestion. We need physical centers, and probably at least one in each country, which can act as a nucleus to all the coordination and knowledge transfer across the countries. I think it should be easily possible. It's just a matter of the governments putting their heads together and agreeing to, because I believe in many countries centers like this or potential centers like this already exist, so it should not really be a big challenge. And we can collaborate and sort of exchange the courses, use offer which provides the larger suite of courses to be offered to students. That will be phenomenal, because that really in one shot will increase the availability of different types of courses to the students all over in all the countries.
Okay. Ajay, briefly, means what would be your ideas for this? Because you in a way, to certain extent, you become a bridge for us between India and Singapore, and together we did a lot of things in Singapore in cybersecurity space.
Sure. Thank you so much. And I think I agree with Professor Austin here that the regional center of knowledge is the way to go, because when the three countries actually can have a collaboration in one is the exchange program. We can have a different exchange program between universities, whether NUS, NTU, IIT here in India, and Australia university. So there could be some the exchange program for cybersecurity specific. Another one is a regional center of knowledge, as he mentioned. Because another point which I would like to highlight here, that most of the cybersecurity professionals, and I'm talking about APJ, but specifically for this region, that most of the cybersecurity professionals are being hired in the organizations like IT, ITS. The highest number of cybersecurity professionals are being hired in IT, ITS. The reason, it is for internal consumption as well as to support their customers, because they have a large customer base and they need to have that kind of a skill set to support their customers as well as internal. The second one is a financial services. Pretty good number of the cybersecurity demand actually there in that region as well. Government, manufacturing. So there are a number of the verticals where cybersecurity professionals are needed, and that collaboration in between three countries would definitely help industry, academia, as well as the employees or students who are looking for these courses.
Murty sir, your final comment, and with that we can close the session today.
Yes. So I agree with Mr. Ajay Kumar because we are looking about such kind of things like even though you are a specialist in cybersecurity for a particular domain, but they are looking basically behind the skills of ITES skills only. So this should be changed. Really need to change it, because that can happen only with collaborations. So with these inputs, I also look into that how we can add some bilateral cooperations, from bilateral cooperation to multilateral cooperation, and with the industry association, how we can together work towards. That is where we are looking. At this moment, we are in the DPR mode for the IC phase 3. So definitely we are thinking of multilateral, but this meeting itself is giving a lot of input so that we can add. So this kind of regional associations with already we are doing it India and Asian countries. as part of thing, we need to exchange this whatever thing we are having at improvement, we need to transfer to them. We started with Mongolia, so in similarly we upwards also we need to look into that. Australia, Singapore, such kind of collaboration is definitely required. So we will try to keep some request for budget to conduct and also such kind of association meetings and exchanging the faculties, which we are looking now. So definitely these inputs are very much useful for us, especially for me. Thank you very much. And
Thank you, sir. And with this inputs, I think this was really wonderful discussion. I step in to take care of the conversation. Thanks, Professor Maninder, Professor Greg, Ajay, and Murty sir for joining us today.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
For
Hi, everyone.
together. Thank you.